forever shattered the night my life ended. Not from the accident. That came later. But from the moment I realized beauty was the only currency I'd ever possessed, and mine had just been stolen. 6 months later, standing in my Moonhaven cottage bathroom, I traced the silver scars mapping my face like cruel constellations. My right eye, permanently clouded, stared back like a dead star. I was 26 and felt ancient. Cardigan Matthews, former Miss Georgia, former model, former human being. The wind rattled my windows as I pulled on my coat, preparing for another covert trip to town. Moonhaven Village clung to the mountains like a secret, shrouded in mist and whispered legends, perfect for someone who needed to disappear. The apothecary's bell announced my entrance with a sound like distant chimes. I kept my hood up, my scarred side turned toward the shadows where dried herbs hung like sleeping bats from rough beams. Bottles caught the light, creating a galaxy of captured color, while the scent of sage and something wilder, something that made my skin prickle, filled the air. The mysterious lady returns. That voice, rich as dark honey with an undertone that vibrated through my chest. I'd been coming here for months, but Arlo still affected me like a physical touch. Just the usual, I mumbled, but he moved with liquid grace to block my retreat. Arlo defied easy description. Tall, lean, with midnight hair streaked silver, and eyes that shifted color like storm clouds. Today, they swirled amber and gold, reflecting light from floating lanterns that definitely hadn't been there yesterday. The usual isn't working. His voice was gentle steel. Those scars carry more than pain, don't they? They bear the weight of everything you've lost. Something cracked inside my chest. Nothing works. Perhaps you're trying to heal the wrong wound. He moved to a wall where bottles seemed to rearrange themselves at his approach. My rational mind screamed warnings, but I'd stopped trusting rational minds the night mine shattered along with my windshield. He selected a crystal vial filled with liquid starlight. There was no other way to describe it. The contents swirled with impossible colors that hurt to look at directly. This isn't for your scars, Cardigan Matthews. Ice shot down my spine. How do you know my name? I know many things. His smile was soft danger, including that what you seek can't be found in any cream or potion. Your healing requires a journey I can guide you through, if you're brave enough. My pulse hammered against my throat. What kind of journey? The magical kind. His eyes locked on mine, and I saw galaxies spinning in their depths. Through realms where appearance means nothing, where truth burns brighter than any spotlight, and where you might find what you've truly lost, though it won't be what you expect. The rational part of me should have laughed, should have run. Instead, I found myself leaning forward. You're talking about actual magic? I'm talking about transformation, Cardigan, the deepest kind there is. He extended the vial, his fingers brushing mine as I took it. Electricity shot up my arm, and for one impossible moment, I saw my reflection in the crystal, whole, glowing, but somehow more real than I'd ever been. What's the price? Only complete trust, and the willingness to see yourself as you truly are, not as the world shaped you to be. The vial pulsed warm in my palm. When do we start? His smile turned wicked. We already have. He gestured toward the shop's back wall. The beaded curtain parted like water, revealing not a storage room but a path winding through a forest bathed in ethereal blue light. Stars I'd never seen painted the sky, and ancient trees formed natural archways overhead. My heart slammed against my ribs. Right now? Magic waits for no one. He offered his arm, and I glimpsed intricate patterns shifting beneath his skin like living tattoos made of light. Shall we? I slipped my hand into the crook of his elbow, and his warmth seared through my coat. As we crossed the threshold, the familiar world dissolved. The forest pulsed with wildlife. Tiny lights danced between the trees like escaped stars, and the moss beneath our feet glowed with each step, creating ripples of luminescence. Transparent flowers bloomed in our wake, their petals stronger than steel, yet delicate as whispers. "Welcome to the Twilight Realm," Arlo murmured, his breath warm against my ear. "Here, nothing is what it seems, and seeming means nothing at all." A butterfly the size of my hand landed on my shoulder, its wings shifting through colors that had no names. When it took flight, it left a trail of silver dust that reformed into tiny musical notes floating in the air. "Why?" I whispered, clutching his arm as we followed the winding path. "Why help me?" "Because everyone deserves to see their own light." His fingers covered mine, steady and sure. "Even those who think it's been extinguished forever." We walked deeper into wonder. I saw streams flowing upward, their waters carrying memories that flickered like fish beneath the surface. Flowers that sang lullabies in languages older than civilization. Trees that whispered secrets in the wind. Then we reached a clearing where an ancient tree grew, its trunk twisted into a perfect doorway. Through it, I saw my reflection, but not as I was now. This mirror showed my deepest fears made manifest. "The mirror of truth," Arlo said. "It reveals not what you are, but what you believe yourself to be." I approached on trembling legs. The reflection that stared back was monstrous. My scars appeared as gaping chasms, my blind eye a void that devoured light. Shadows writhed across my skin like living things, and my mouth was twisted into a permanent expression of rage and self-loathing. "This is how you see yourself," Arlo said quietly. "But it's not what I see." "Then what do you see?" I couldn't look away from the horror in the mirror. Instead of answering, he stepped behind me, his chest a warm wall against my back. His hands settled on my shoulders, and suddenly, the reflection began to shift. The scars softened into silver threads that caught starlight. My blind eye became a swirling galaxy, beautiful and mysterious. The shadows retreated, replaced by a luminescence that seemed to emanate from within my very soul. "I see strength," he murmured, his lips brushing my ear. "I see someone who survived hell and came out fighting. I see beauty that transforms rather than fades, courage that burns brighter than any spotlight." Tears tracked down my cheeks as the mirror showed me moments I'd forgotten, acts of kindness, genuine laughter, times I'd lifted others up instead of competing with them. My reflection revealed not the beauty queen I'd been, but the woman I'd always been underneath. "Your worth was never in your face," Arlo said, turning me to look at him. His eyes had deepened to violet, and in them I saw not pity, but desire so raw it stole my breath. "It was always here." His hand pressed over my heart. "In your capacity for love, for growth, for becoming something entirely new." Looking into those impossible eyes, I felt something inside me crack open, not breaking, but blooming, like a flower pushing through concrete, fierce and unstoppable. Our magical education continued through landscapes that defied description. We crossed bridges made of woven moonbeams, where each step created ripples of light spreading into the void. In crystal caves that amplified thoughts into visible shapes, Arlo taught me to weave simple spells with my fingers, his hands guiding mine through motions that felt both foreign and perfectly natural. "Magic," he explained, his breath warm against my neck as he corrected my stance, "is simply the art of seeing possibility where others see limitation." But it wasn't all wonder and education. The attraction between us grew stronger with each lesson, each touch, each moment our eyes met across some impossible vista. I caught him watching me with an intensity that made my skin burn, and I began to notice the way his jaw tightened when I stood too close, the way his hands lingered when he helped me over magical obstacles. One evening, as we rested beside a pool of singing water that reflected impossible constellations, I couldn't contain the question any longer. "What happened to your last student?" I asked, remembering something his sister had mentioned. His expression darkened, and the magical lights around us dimmed. "Her name was Elena. She came to me much as you did, seeking transformation after trauma." His voice carried old pain. "But she wasn't ready for what magic reveals. When the journey showed her truths she couldn't accept, she let them destroy her." "And your sister?" "Marlowe believes magic should only flow to those she deems worthy. She intervened, showed her the darkest possible interpretation of every truth the realm revealed." His hands clenched into fists. "Elena never recovered. She took her own life 3 days after returning to the mortal world." The water's song turned mournful, and I reached for his hand without thinking. The moment our skin touched, electricity arced between us, and he sucked in a sharp breath. "I won't let that happen to you," he said fiercely, his fingers intertwining with mine. "I swear it." "Maybe it won't be up to you." As if summoned by my words, shadow fell across our sanctuary. The temperature plummeted, and every light in the realm dimmed to barely visible embers. "What do we have here?" Frost crackled in that voice. "Teaching another broken bird to fly, dear brother." Marlowe emerged from the darkness like a nightmare given form. She shared Arlo's aristocratic features, but where his held warmth, hers were sharp with cruel beauty. Her hair moved like living shadows, and her gown seemed cut from crystallized night itself. "Marlowe." Arlo stood slowly, power radiating from him in visible waves. "You have no business here." "Don't I?" Her gaze fixed on me, and my scars began to burn like brands. "Tell me, little bird, has my brother mentioned what happened to his last pet project?" "Enough." Arlo stepped between us, magic crackling around his hands. "Oh, but I think she deserves to know." Marlowe's smile was beautiful and terrible. How Elena begged for the magic to be reversed when she saw what she truly was. How she screamed when she realized the price of transformation. "Shall I show this one the same truth?" Dark energy erupted from her hands, promising to strip away not just my progress, but my sanity itself. But something had awakened in me during these weeks with Arlo, something that recognized this darkness and refused to bow to it. Without thinking, I raised my own hands, power flowing through me like liquid starlight. The darkness hit an invisible barrier and shattered into 1,000 butterflies that dissolved into harmless light. Both siblings stared at me in shock. "Impossible," Marlowe whispered. "You're just human." "No." I stood taller, power thrumming through my veins like music. "I'm someone who's learned that scars can be strength, that broken things can be more beautiful than perfect ones, that transformation doesn't mean erasing the past. It means building something new from the pieces." Light poured from my scars, not hiding them, but making them radiant. My blind eye became a window to seeing magic itself, revealing the complex weave of power that held this realm together. "You see, sister?" Arlo's voice was soft with wonder. "True magic isn't about power or price. It's about revealing what was always there, waiting to be discovered." Marlowe's form wavered like smoke. "This isn't over," she hissed before dissolving. "Some truths are too harsh for love to overcome." In the silence that followed, Arlo turned to me with awe written across his face. In all my centuries, I've never seen anyone channel pure light like that. He stepped closer, his eyes now as deep as the midnight sky. You didn't just resist her darkness, you transformed it. I had a good teacher. I moved toward him, no longer caring about scars or blindness or any of the things that had once defined me. One who taught me that our deepest wounds can become our greatest strengths. His hand rose to cup my cheek, his thumb tracing the luminous lines that mapped my face. Your scars have become channels for your magic. The very things you thought weakened, you have made you more powerful than you could ever imagine. Is that possible? With you, I'm learning anything is. His other hand slid into my hair, tilting my face up to his. You've transformed more than yourself, Cardigan. You've reminded me why I fell in love with magic in the first place. And what about love itself? I whispered, my heart hammering against my ribs. His answer was a kiss that tasted of starlight and possibility, of magic and truth and everything I'd been seeking without knowing it. His lips were soft at first, questioning, then firm and demanding as I melted against him. The realm around us exploded with light and color, responding to the joy and desire flowing between us like a shared heartbeat. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the world had transformed. The trees sparkled with thousands of fairy lights, and the air filled with musical flowers that chimed soft melodies as they drifted past. Even the lingering traces of Marlowe's shadows became gentle twilight. The realm responds to joy, Arlo explained, his forehead resting against mine. And truth. What truth is that? That sometimes the most powerful magic is allowing yourself to be loved exactly as you are. His hands framed my face, the thumbs stroking over my glowing scars. That beauty isn't about perfection. It's about authenticity. About embracing every part of yourself, especially the parts you once thought were broken. We made love under impossible stars, on ground that bloomed with flowers at our touch. Arlo worshipped my scars with his mouth, showing me how beautiful I was to him, how desired. When he moved above me, his eyes swirling with galaxies, I felt complete for the first time in my life. Not despite my imperfections, but because of how they'd led me here, to him, to this magic we created together. Later, wrapped in his arms as the realm pulsed gently around us, he traced patterns on my skin that glowed wherever he touched. I love you, he said simply, as if it were the most natural truth in any world. I love you too. The words felt like casting a spell, like opening a door I'd never known existed. Hand in hand, we walked back toward the passage to his shop, but I knew I wouldn't be using it to hide anymore. I had found something more precious than the perfect face I'd lost. I had found myself, and in doing so, discovered love that saw beyond surface to the magic that had always been there, waiting to be awakened. In the months that followed, we transformed Arlo's shop into a sanctuary for others like me, people seeking not just healing, but transformation of the deepest kind. Together, we guided them to discover their own inner magic, teaching them that true beauty flows from accepting all parts of oneself, even the broken ones. My scars still drew stares when I ventured into the regular world, but now they shimmered with an inner light that spoke of magic overcome and power reclaimed. My blind eye had become a gift, allowing me to see through illusions to the truth beneath. Each morning when I looked in the mirror, I saw not the beauty queen I'd once been, but something far more precious, a woman who had learned to see her own worth. And always, Arlo was there beside me, his love a constant reminder that some accidents aren't accidents at all, but doorways to destiny. My scars had led me to him, to this purpose, to the understanding that true beauty isn't about being flawless. It's about being fearlessly, magically, authentically yourself. "Ready for today's lesson?" he asked one morning, his eyes twinkling with mischief and desire as he pulled me close. The magical lights in our realm danced in response to our joy, painting stories of transformation across the walls. I smiled, feeling magic pulse beneath my skin like a second heartbeat, my scars glowing with captured starlight. "With you? Always." Our story continued, not as a tale of lost beauty regained, but as something far more powerful. Proof that sometimes the most beautiful things in life grow from our deepest wounds, and that true love recognizes the deepest facets of the heart, finding magic in the most unexpected places. The invitation arrived on the night I wanted to die. 2 years to the day since Alexander's death, I sat in my darkened apartment, staring at the bottle of pills I'd been hoarding like a miser counts coins. The moon hung like a cold eye outside my window, watching me balance on the knife's edge between grief and surrender. That's when I heard it, the whisper of paper sliding beneath my door, soft as a lover's breath. My bare feet made no sound on the hardwood floor as I crossed the room. The envelope gleamed silver in the darkness, its edges pulsing with an otherworldly light that made my skin prickle. My fingers shook as I lifted it, feeling its weight settle into my palms like a living thing, warm and urgent against my cold flesh. "The Midnight Palais calls you, Evelyn Graves. A single dance could resurrect what you've lost. Come when twilight bleeds across the valley, where time bends to the rhythm of eternal hearts." The words moved across the parchment like shadows given form, and music whispered through my apartment, a melody that clawed at memories buried so deep I'd forgotten they existed. As a principal dancer with the Metropolitan Ballet, I'd thought I understood how music could possess a soul. This was different. This reached into the hollow spaces Alexander's death had carved from me and filled them with something dark and desperate. I hadn't danced since the accident, hadn't so much as stretched at the bar in my living room, though it stood there like an accusation, gathering dust and broken dreams. But standing there with that cursed invitation, my body began to move of its own accord, executing steps to choreography I'd never learned. The melody grew stronger, wrapping around my ribs like phantom arms, and I could almost feel Alexander behind me, his breath hot against my neck as we moved through our final pas de deux. The stage lights had malfunctioned during our Swan Lake rehearsal. One moment we were soaring through the grand jeté that would have made our careers. The next, sparks rained from above like falling stars. Alexander pushed me clear with those strong, graceful hands that had lifted me through 1,000 dances, and the burning scaffolding crushed him instead. I escaped with a shattered ankle and a guilt that ate me alive from the inside out, consuming everything that had once made me whole. The doctors said I would dance again. They didn't understand that without Alexander, there was no point in moving at all. How could I explain that we had been two halves of the same soul, spinning through life as one entity? I should have burned the invitation. Should have flushed those pills and gotten help. Instead, I pressed the parchment against my chest and felt its heat seep through my thin nightgown, past skin and bone, straight into the frozen wasteland where my heart used to beat. For 7 nights, the invitation called to me. Each evening, it grew brighter, more insistent, until the silver script seemed to burn against my retinas. I researched the Midnight Palais obsessively, finding only whispers and fragments scattered across obscure forums and deleted blog posts. A place where the veil grows thin, dancers marked by tragedy, the dance of 1,000 deaths. Sarah, my former dance partner, had warned me about such places during our coffee dates when she still believed I might return to the company. "There are stories," she'd said, her voice dropping to a whisper as she glanced around the cafe. Places that appear to dancers who've lost everything. They promise redemption, but the price... She'd shuddered, unable to finish, her fingers trembling around her cup. On the 7th night, I found myself standing before my mirror in a gown I didn't remember buying. It flowed like liquid starlight, clinging to curves I'd forgotten I possessed after months of eating nothing but grief and rage. The mask that materialized beside it, delicate silver filigree set with moonstones that glowed with their own inner fire, felt warm against my skin, as if it had been waiting centuries for my face. My reflection looked like a stranger. My dark hair, usually scraped back in a severe bun that spoke of discipline and denial, fell in waves past my shoulders. My body, which had grown sharp and angular with grief, curved and swayed beneath the impossible fabric. I looked alive for the first time in 2 years, dangerous and beautiful and ready to dance with the devil himself. The valley stretched before me in perpetual twilight, painted in shades of violet and silver that belonged to no earthly sunset. The midnight palais rose from the mist like a fever dream, all soaring spires and impossible architecture that shifted in my peripheral, as if the stones were alive with anticipation. Music drifted from its windows, and my soul ached with recognition. Other figures moved through the ethereal landscape, elegant shadows in evening wear, their faces hidden behind masks that caught and reflected the strange light like captured stars. Some walked alone, but most moved in pairs, drawn toward the grand entrance like moths to a flame that promised to either transform or consume them entirely. The path wound through gardens where roses bloomed in impossible colors, midnight black with silver edges, deep purple with veins of gold that pulsed like heartbeats. Their perfume was intoxicating, filling my lungs with something that tasted like memory and desire, like all the kisses I'd never had the chance to steal. As I climbed toward the palace, visions flickered at the edges of my consciousness. Candlelit ballrooms where women in corsets waltzed with men in military dress, gaslit theater stages where passion played out in 3 acts, modern dance studios with wall-to-wall mirrors reflecting infinite possibilities. In each scene, I danced with a partner whose touch felt like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. But when I tried to focus on his face, the images dissolved like smoke on water. The massive doors opened at my approach, releasing a wave of music that crashed over me like a physical force. The ballroom beyond defied physics, its ceiling a living tapestry of constellations that wheeled and danced in time with the ghostly orchestra. The floor rippled like dark water, reflecting not the dancers above, but glimpses of other times, other places, other lives where love had bloomed and withered and bloomed again. Couples whirled across the impossible space, their forms sometimes solid, sometimes translucent as morning mist. Some wore contemporary evening wear, while others danced in costumes from centuries past, Victorian bustles that swept across the floor like storm clouds, medieval gowns that pooled around bare feet, 1920s beadwork that caught and scattered the supernatural light like captured raindrops. You came. The voice behind me carried the weight of centuries and the heat of a lover's whisper. I turned, and the world tilted on its axis, gravity shifting to accommodate the impossible. He stood in the shadow of a marble pillar, tall and lean in a black tailcoat that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. His mask was obsidian shot through with veins of gold, but it couldn't hide the sharp angle of his jaw or the mouth that curved in a smile both familiar and devastating. His dark hair fell in waves past his collar, and when he stepped into the light, I saw his eyes, deep blue touched with silver, ancient and new all at once. Those eyes. God help me, I knew those eyes. I'm Roberto, he said, extending a gloved hand with the grace of a man who had learned to move like poetry itself. "Would you honor me with this dance?" My heart stuttered, then began beating so hard I was sure he could hear it echoing through the supernatural ballroom. Every instinct I possessed screamed that this moment balanced on the edge of forever, that my answer would determine not this night, but every night that came after. "I'm Evelyn," I whispered, placing my hand in his. The moment our skin touched, the world exploded. Lightning raced up my arm and the ballroom blurred and shifted around us, reality folding like origami in the hands of a master. Suddenly we were dancing through different eras. A waltz in a medieval castle where torches cast dancing shadows on stone walls. A quadrille in a Georgian manor while rain lashed the windows. A sultry tango in a Prohibition-era speakeasy thick with smoke and secrets. In each scene, our bodies moved together with perfect understanding, muscle memory reaching back through lifetimes I couldn't quite grasp. "You're beginning to remember," Roberto murmured, his lips brushing my ear as we spun through what looked like a Victorian ballroom, heavy with the scent of hothouse flowers. "It happens sooner each time, but remembering is only the first step." His voice sent heat spiraling through me, awakening parts of my soul I'd thought died with Alexander. But this wasn't Alexander. This was someone older, darker, infinitely more dangerous. Someone who looked at me as if I were the answer to prayers he'd been whispering for centuries. "Where are we?" I gasped as we moved through the steps of a dance I'd never learned but somehow knew by heart, each movement flowing into the next, like water finding its course. "The Midnight Palais exists between heartbeats, between moments," he said, pulling me closer until I felt the heat radiating from his body, until his scent, sandalwood and midnight air, filled my lungs. "It's where souls come to remember, and sometimes to break free." Around us, other couples danced with increasing desperation. Some faded like morning mist, their forms growing translucent as they lost themselves in the rhythm. Others grew more solid, their movements taking on a ritualistic quality that made my skin crawl with a recognition I didn't want to acknowledge. "What are we?" The question escaped before I could stop it, torn from somewhere deep inside my chest. Roberto's grip tightened, his fingers burning through the thin fabric of my gloves. "We are lovers cursed to find one another in every lifetime, to love with every breath we take, and to lose one another to tragedy each time the wheel turns." His voice dropped to a growl that vibrated through my bones. "I am the guardian of this place, bound to guide others through the dance of 1,000 deaths until my own soul finds redemption." "And me?" I barely managed to form the words around the tightness in my throat. "You are my heart's other half, trapped in the same endless cycle." His eyes blazed behind his mask, burning with an intensity that should have terrified me. "We've danced this dance for centuries, Evelyn, in medieval courts and modern theaters, in war-torn cities and peaceful gardens, always finding one another, always losing one another, always returning here for one more chance to break the curse that binds us." The music changed, becoming something primal and raw that seemed to pulse in time with my racing heart. As we moved through increasingly complex steps, memories crashed over me like tsunami waves. Stolen kisses in palace gardens while nightingales sang overhead. Desperate couplings in candlelit chambers as armies marched past our doors. Final embraces on battlefields and deathbeds where we swore we'd find one another again. "Alexander," I breathed, understanding blooming like a poisonous flower in my chest. "In this lifetime, you were Alexander." Pain flickered across his perfect features like candlelight in a storm. Different names, different faces, but always the same souls reaching for one another across the void. The stage accident wasn't chance, my love. The Palais was calling us back, but I arrived first. I've been waiting for you. The revelation should have terrified me. Instead, it filled me with a dark euphoria that made my blood sing and my body come alive in ways I'd forgotten were possible. How do we break it? How do we escape this cycle? His laugh was bitter as winter wind. That's what we've been trying to figure out for 700 years. The chandelier above us pulsed with otherworldly light, and the music took on an urgency that made my soul ache with longing. Around us, the remaining dancers blurred into streaks of color and desperate motion, their own stories playing out in parallel to ours like infinite reflections in a broken mirror. The final movement approaches, Roberto warned, spinning me until my gown flared around us like wings of liquid darkness. We must complete the dance of 1,000 deaths before the last note fades, or be trapped here until the next century brings another chance. Instead of answering, I pulled him down and crushed my mouth to his. The kiss tasted of starlight and tears, of countless reunions and bitter partings. His lips moved against mine with desperate hunger, centuries of longing condensed into this single moment of contact. I felt his heart hammering against his ribs, tasted the salt of tears I hadn't realized I was crying. When we broke apart, we were alone in a ballroom that had transformed into something from a fever dream. Walls of shifting shadow, a floor that rippled like black water, and above us, a ceiling of swirling constellations that pulsed in time with our racing hearts. The dance that followed defied description. We moved through lifetime after lifetime, each step burning with memory and desire. I felt the joy of our first meetings, a knight and a lady in a moonlit garden where roses climbed the walls, a soldier and a nurse in a field hospital while shells burst overhead, a choreographer and his star in a Broadway theater where dreams came to life under hot lights. I experienced the passion of our loves, desperate couplings in hidden chambers while the world burned outside, tender moments stolen between rehearsals when we thought no one was watching, wedding nights that blazed with promise and hope for the future. And I endured the agony of our partings, plague and warfare, accidents and betrayals, always something that tore us apart when we thought we'd found our forever. Always the same pattern: love, loss, death, rebirth, and the endless search for one another across the spinning centuries. Through it all, our bodies moved in perfect synchronization as we rewrote the story of our souls with every turn, every lift, every moment our eyes met across the cosmic darkness. His hands on my waist burned like brands, marking me as his across every lifetime we'd shared and every one yet to come. But as we danced, a terrible understanding dawned. The curse wasn't the tragic endings, it was our fear of them. In every lifetime, we'd loved one another while looking over our shoulders for the shadow of death, never fully surrendering to the present because we were so terrified of losing it. We'd held back pieces of ourselves, thinking we could somehow minimize the pain by never loving completely. "Roberto," I gasped as we spun through the final measures, my gown streaming behind us. "We don't need to break free from our past. We need to break free from our fear of the future." His eyes widened with recognition and something that might have been hope. Each lifetime, we hold back part of ourselves, attempting to protect our hearts from the pain we know is coming. But that reservation, that fear, that's what keeps us bound. I finished, the truth hitting me hard. We create our own tragedy by expecting it. The music reached a crescendo that shook the very foundations of reality. The chandelier above us exploded into a shower of starlight, and the floor beneath our feet cracked, revealing not darkness, but a pure, brilliant light that made my eyes water. As the final movement of the Dance of 1,000 Deaths began, we stopped trying to escape our history. Instead, we embraced every moment, every emotion, every memory. Each turn was a celebration of our shared soul rather than an attempt to rewrite it. I poured every ounce of love I'd ever felt into the dance, holding nothing back, surrendering completely to the rhythm of our eternal hearts. The walls of the midnight palais dissolved, revealing glimpses of all the times and places we'd loved. Every garden we'd stolen kisses, every ballroom we'd waltzed until dawn, every quiet moment stolen from an unforgiving world. They flowed around us like a river of memories, beautiful and painful and perfect in their completeness. Choose now, a voice echoed through the disintegrating reality, neither male nor female, but ancient as time itself. Choose your fate. I looked into Roberto's eyes and saw every version of him I'd ever loved. The noble knight who'd died defending my honor, the passionate artist who'd painted my portrait a dozen times, the devoted partner who'd died saving me from falling lights. I choose us, I said, my voice ringing with a certainty that came from the depths of my soul. Not the beautiful moments, but the painful ones too. I choose to love you completely, knowing that every ending leads to a new beginning. And I choose you, he replied, his voice rough with an emotion that had been building for centuries. Not despite our history, but because of it. Every joy, every sorrow, every dance has led us to this moment. I choose to love you without reservation, without fear, without holding anything back. As the final note faded, the midnight palais shimmered and transformed. The eternal twilight lifted like a curtain rising on the greatest performance of our lives, revealing a dawn painted in shades of gold and rose that spoke of new beginnings. Around us, other couples emerged from the dissolving mist, souls who had been trapped in their own cycles, now free to move forward into whatever came next. Our masks crumbled to silver dust, and I saw Roberto's face clearly for the first time in this lifetime. Tears tracked down his cheeks, but his smile held the joy of 7 centuries of love finally set free. He was beautiful and terrible and mine in ways that transcended death itself. What happens now? I asked, reaching up to trace the sharp line of his jaw, memorizing every angle and plane. He caught my hand and pressed it flat against his chest, where I felt his heart beating strong and sure. Now, my love, we dance not because we must, but because we choose to. And this time, we carry our past with us not as a burden, but as a gift. The knowledge that our love is strong enough to survive anything. The morning sun touched the remains of the midnight palais, transforming it into a garden where impossible roses bloomed in every color imaginable. In the distance, I heard the faint echo of our waltz, not as a chain binding us to the past, but as a promise of all the dances yet to come. Hand in hand, we walked into the dawn, our souls finally free to begin the greatest performance of our lives. The invitation that had brought me here dissolved into butterflies made of pure light, dancing around us before disappearing into the brightening sky like wishes taking wing. When I woke in my own bed the next morning, sunlight streaming through windows I'd kept curtained for 2 years, I might have believed it was all a dream, except for the single black rose with silver edges that lay on my pillow, still warm from another world's touch. And in my heart, I felt the familiar heat of Roberto's love, not from this lifetime, but from all the ones before and all the ones yet to come. The bottle of pills sat untouched on my nightstand, meaningless now. I had a different kind of forever waiting for me, one built not on the promise of no more pain, but on the certainty that whatever came, we would face it together. I rose and walked to my neglected bar, my body moving with a grace I'd thought was lost forever. As I stretched into first position, I felt Roberto with me, not as a ghost or a memory, but as a living presence woven into the fabric of my soul. When I danced now, I danced with the wisdom of 1,000 lifetimes and the passion of a love that transcends death itself. Some loves are strong enough to endure not by defying fate, but by embracing it completely, turning even the darkest nights into a celebration of the light we create together. And perhaps that's the most powerful magic of all, the knowledge that true love doesn't need to escape its past to find its future. It needs only to surrender completely to every step of the dance, trusting that each turn brings us closer to where we're meant to be. In my dreams, we still waltz through ballrooms made of starlight, and I wake each morning with the taste of forever on my lips. The crystal flute shattered against the marble floor. I watched the fragments scatter like fallen stars as Nicholas Owensby's emerald gaze burned through the crowded ballroom, finding mine with predatory precision. Every nerve in my body screamed danger, yet I stood frozen, a rabbit mesmerized by the wolf's approach. The pearl choker at my throat felt like a noose as my pulse hammered against its constraints. He moved through the sea of silk and satin like darkness given form, each calculated step bringing him closer to my inevitable ruin. The whispered warnings of London's matrons echoed in my mind. Notorious charmer, destroyer of virtue, scandal incarnate. Yet when those impossible green eyes locked onto mine, rational thought fled from my mind. Lady Caroline. His voice caressed my name like a lover's touch, wrapped in a sinful velvet. You appear untouchable tonight. My breath caught, and the lie slipped from my lips. Perhaps because I am. His mouth curved into a smile that promised both damnation and salvation. Shall we test that theory? Before a protest could form, his gloved hand claimed mine, leading me onto the dance floor as the orchestra struck haunting notes. The moment his palm settled against my waist, fire raced through my veins. Scandalously close. Close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body, smell the intoxicating blend of sandalwood and danger that clung to his skin. Tell me, he murmured, his breath warm against my temple. What thoughts occupy that brilliant mind while you pose so perfectly for society's inspection? The unexpected depth caught me off guard. I searched his face for the practiced charm, but found genuine curiosity burning in those impossibly deep eyes. I think about escape, I admitted, my voice barely audible above the music. About what lies beyond these gilded prisons we call drawing rooms. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise melting into something far more dangerous. And where would you go? Anywhere, everywhere. The words tumbled out like confessions. Venice, where it is claimed that moonlight turns canals to ribbons of silver. The Scottish Highlands, where moors stretch endlessly and are wild. Places where I could breathe without calculating every gesture. His grip tightened, and for one breathless moment, I glimpsed the man beneath the polished facade, vulnerable, hungry, achingly real. What if I told you I could show you those places? I'd say you were a dangerous man making dangerous promises, the most dangerous kind. His eyes glittered with dark promise, the kind I intend to keep. The dance ended too soon, yet he didn't let me go. His fingers lingered, his thumb tracing maddening circles across my knuckles through his silk gloves. When he finally bowed, his gaze never wavered. Until tomorrow night, Lady Caroline. The Ashworth musical? I nodded, not trusting my voice. He lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss through the silk that burned like a brand against my skin. Then he vanished into the crowd, leaving me trembling like a moth singed by a flame. 3 weeks passed in a fever dream of stolen moments and whispered conversations. Nicholas sought me out at every gathering, and shame burned through me at how eagerly I anticipated each encounter. He wasn't like the shallow peacocks who typically pursued me with their empty flattery and wandering eyes. When he spoke of his travels, passion lit his features from within, making my heart race with dangerous longing. When he debated literature, challenging my thoughts on Byron and Shelley, his intelligence sparked something deep in my soul, a hunger I'd never dared acknowledge. But it was the quiet moments that destroyed me completely. Like the afternoon he discovered my secret rebellion. I'd been sneaking out to explore London's forbidden bookshops, desperate for knowledge beyond what proper young ladies were permitted to consume. Instead of scolding my impropriety, he led me to a tiny shop nestled between a milliner's and a bakery, where leather-bound treasures lined shelves from floor to vaulted ceiling. "The proprietor won't speak of your visits," he said, watching as I reverently touched the spine of a first edition Wollstonecraft. I turned to find him studying me with an intensity that stole my breath. "Why would you risk your reputation for mine?" "Because you deserve to feed that brilliant mind." He stepped closer, close enough that I could see gold flecks in those mesmerizing green eyes. "Because watching you discover new ideas is more beautiful than any sunrise I've witnessed from Venice's ancient bridges." My heart hammered against my ribs as he reached past me, his body brushing mine in a whisper of contact that sent fire racing through my blood. When he handed me a slim volume, Keats, bound in midnight blue leather, our fingers touched and lingered. "A thing of beauty is a joy forever," he quoted softly, his voice rough with unnamed emotion. "Its loveliness increases. It will never pass into nothingness." "You believe beauty is eternal?" I whispered, drowning in the depths of his gaze. "I believe some things are worth preserving." His free hand rose to cup my cheek, the thumb tracing the curve of my cheekbone with devastating tenderness. "Worth protecting at any cost." For one suspended heartbeat, I thought he might kiss me. The air crackled with possibility, and I found myself swaying toward him like a flower seeking sunlight. Then the shop bell chimed, shattering the spell and sending us springing apart like guilty children. But the memory lingered, burning in my blood like a fever. Everything shattered the night of the Hartley summer ball. I'd spent hours preparing, choosing a gown of deep emerald silk that transformed my eyes to jeweled fire. Pearls woven through my dark curls caught candlelight like captured stars, and the looking glass reflected a woman I barely recognized, one alive with anticipation, glowing with the secret knowledge of blossoming love. Nicholas would be there. We'd planned to slip away to the conservatory, where he'd promised to read me Italian sonnets he'd been translating. The thought sent delicious shivers racing down my spine, pooling heat in places no proper lady should acknowledge. I arrived fashionably late, my heart already racing at the prospect of seeing him. The ballroom blazed with 1,000 candles, their light fracturing off crystal chandeliers and the diamonds adorning London's elite. I scanned the crowd eagerly, searching for that familiar dark head and those eyes that haunted my dreams. When I didn't find him among the dancers, I made my way to the terrace for air. The night was warm, perfumed with jasmine and rose, couples strolling moonlit paths in whispered conversation. I was about to return inside when I heard it, a low, familiar laugh that made my pulse quicken. I rounded the corner toward the fountain and froze. Nicholas stood beneath the marble nymph's outstretched arms, his hands framing the face of Lady Penelope Howard. Her golden hair caught the moonlight like spun silk, and her cornflower blue eyes gazed up at him with naked adoration. They stood pressed together in intimate conversation, their bodies speaking a language I thought belonged to us alone. "You know, you're the only one who truly understands me," he murmured, his voice carrying that same husky undertone that had made me tremble with longing. The world tilted violently. My vision blurred as every whispered warning, every cautionary tale about Nicholas Owensby crashed over me like Arctic water. How could I have been so foolish? so naive to believe his pretty words and heated glances meant anything beyond practiced seduction. I was another conquest, another name in his catalog of ruined hearts. I fled before either could see me, my emerald skirts whispering against the marble as I ran. The carriage ride home passed in a blur of tears and shattered dreams. By morning, I'd convinced my parents that the London air disagreed with me. Within a week, I was bound for our estate in Derbyshire, my heart in ruins and my faith in love destroyed. The countryside welcomed me like a balm to my wounded soul. Rolling green hills stretched endlessly beneath summer skies, and the ancient manor house offered blessed solitude. I threw myself into managing the estate, learning the intricate dance of accounts and tenant relations from our aging steward. The work provided a merciful distraction from the ache that had taken permanent residence in my chest. But it was in my mother's rose garden that I found something resembling peace. The garden had been her passion before consumption claimed her 3 years prior, and I'd avoided it since, too painful a reminder of loss, compounding loss. Now I found myself drawn to its overgrown paths, to the wild roses that climbed stone walls with determined beauty despite neglect. There was something sacred about nurturing life, about coaxing beauty from thorny stems and stubborn soil. Each morning, I'd wake before dawn and make my way to the garden with pruning shears and leather gloves. The physical labor soothed my restless spirit, and slowly, miraculously, the garden responded. Roses bloomed with renewed vigor, their perfume sweet and clean in the country air. I felt myself healing alongside them, growing stronger with each passing day, which made me completely unprepared for the sound of hoofbeats on gravel 6 weeks later. I looked up from the damask rose I'd been tending to see a figure dismounting near the front steps. My heart seized as I recognized those broad shoulders and dark hair, even beneath a layer of road dust. Nicholas Owensby stood in my sanctuary, looking travel-worn and desperate, clutching something small and glinting in his palm like a lifeline. Caroline. My name on his lips was prayer and plea combined. Please, let me explain. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to lock myself in the manor and wait for him to leave. Instead, I found myself frozen between the desire to flee and the treacherous hope unfurling in my chest like a stubborn bloom. There's nothing to explain, I said, proud that my voice remained steady despite the earthquake in my chest. I saw quite enough. No. He stepped closer, and I noticed the shadows beneath his eyes, the lines of exhaustion etched around his mouth. This wasn't the polished dandy of London society. This was a man pushed beyond his limits. What you saw was a lie. A misunderstanding that's been torturing me for weeks. Pretty words, I said bitterly, raising my chin despite the tears threatening to spill. Do they work on all your conquests, or am I special? Pain flickered across his features, so genuine it stole my breath. Lady Penelope was distraught that night. Her brother William had consumption, and he had taken a turn for the worse. She was weeping in the garden, and He raked a hand through his disheveled hair. I was comforting a friend. Nothing more. I saw how you held her, how you looked at her. I was thinking of you. His voice broke on the admission. Even in that moment, you were all I could see. I wished you were there, wished I could offer you comfort instead. Because you, Caroline Bentley, are the only woman who has ever truly captured my heart. My traitorous pulse quickened, but I forced myself to remain strong. How many women have you said those words to? None. He opened his palm, revealing an antique ring that seemed to pulse with an inner light. The gold was worn smooth with age, set with a stone that captured and reflected morning sun like trapped starfire. This belonged to my grandmother and hers before her. Legend says it was blessed by a wise woman centuries ago, enchanted to reveal true love to those brave enough to trust. I scoffed, even as something deep within me stirred at the sight of the beautiful ring. You're asking me to believe in fairy tales? I'm asking you to trust what you see. He held out the ring, and as morning light struck it, colors swirled within its depths like aurora dancing across northern skies. The stone reveals the bearer's heart's desire, but only if that love is pure and unselfish. Look, Caroline, see the truth. Against every rational thought screaming in my head, I found myself reaching for the ring. The moment it touched my bare palm, the world exploded into visions that stole my breath and shattered my reality. I saw Nicholas pacing his London study at midnight, writing letter after letter, only to crumple them in frustration. I saw him questioning his past, realizing how empty his existence had been before our paths crossed. I witnessed the truth of that night with Lady Penelope, saw him thinking of me even as he comforted her, saw how her tears reminded him of his sister's death from consumption years before. But more than that, I saw his heart laid completely bare. The love there was real and transformative. Not the shallow desire of a practiced seducer, but the deep, abiding devotion of a man whose very soul had been awakened by unexpected love. I saw how meeting me had changed him fundamentally, how my challenges to his intellect and spirit had made him want to be worthy of something greater than a mere conquest. The visions faded, leaving us standing in the misty garden, forever changed by what we'd witnessed. Nicholas stepped closer, his hand hovering near my cheek as if I might vanish. "I love you, Caroline," he whispered, his voice raw with an emotion that couldn't be feigned. "Not for your beauty or your dowry, but for the fire in your mind and the courage in your heart. I love you for the woman you are when society isn't watching, the one who dreams of distant shores and debates philosophy with passion. I love you for showing me what it means to truly live instead of merely exist." Tears burned and blurred my vision as I looked up at him, seeing him clearly for the first time. The morning sun broke through the mist, surrounding us in golden light that seemed to emanate from the ring itself. Magic hummed in the air around us, but no more so than the truth burning in those emerald eyes. "I love you too," I whispered, the words carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "The real you, not the mask you wore for London's entertainment." He cupped my face in trembling hands, the thumbs brushing away the tears on my cheeks with infinite tenderness. When his lips met mine, the ring's magic exploded around us in a shower of golden light. The roses burst into sudden, impossible bloom, their petals unfurling to release waves of intoxicating fragrance that made my head spin. His kiss was everything I'd imagined and more, desperate and tender, hungry yet reverent. I melted against him, my hands fisting in his travel-stained coat as he poured all his longing into the connection between us. When we finally broke apart, both breathless and shaking, I understood the legend's true meaning. Real love wasn't passion alone, but the courage to see and accept someone completely, shadows and light together. Nicholas slipped the ring onto my finger, where it settled as if it had been waiting centuries for this moment. The stone pulsed with warm light, a constant reminder of the magic that had brought us together and the truth we'd finally acknowledged. "Tell me more about Venice," I said softly, leaning into his embrace as if I belonged there, which I realized with stunning clarity that I did. His smile was radiant as he pulled me closer, his arms encircling me like a harbor after a storm. "I'll do better than that. I'll take you there. We'll watch moonlight turn the canals to silver, and I'll show you every wonder I've promised and more." As we walked through the garden together, planning our future with the eager joy of lovers finally united, I realized that the greatest magic wasn't in enchanted rings or ancient legends. It was in the simple courage to trust again, to open a wounded heart and choose love despite every risk. The ring on my finger glowed softly, warm against my skin like captured sunlight. Some promises, I understood now, became their own magic when made with pure hearts and unshakable faith. And so began our true story, written not in London's glittering ballrooms, but in quiet moments of absolute trust, in the gentle magic of everyday devotion, and in the certainty that some love stories were worth every risk, every tear, every moment of doubt that led to perfect clarity. In the years to come, we would return to that rose garden on every anniversary, watching the blooms grow more vibrant with each passing season, as if blessed by the memory of that magical morning. Though we traveled the world together, Venice with its silver canals, the wild Scottish highlands, and countless other wonders, we always knew the greatest adventure was the love we shared, growing stronger and more beautiful with each passing day. Like the enchanted ring that bound us, our love would shine brighter with each year, a beacon of magic in a world that often forgot to believe in such things. And in the quiet moments when the world grew still around us, we felt it, the pulse of something ancient and eternal, reminding us that true love, once found, becomes the most powerful magic of all.